This is Alexander Grunsteidl. You can take place at your... No, you have your own mics. It's all... No, it's my special mic. Alexander, he understands Dutch, but he lives in London and he works at Method. He's head of interaction design there. And he formerly worked for... Whoa! Is that you? Thank you. He formerly worked for Apple Research Labs, and he has also worked for IDEO. And working for IDEO, he was involved with the Prada store in New York by Rem Koolhaas. He did all the interactivity there, very early adapter. And Method is all about doing, I've read the website, they do integrated brand and product and service experiences. Yeah, wow. And he's passionate about making music, I read on the website. But he's not going to do that on stage. He's going to tell us about how retail is reshaping the city. So, Alexander.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good evening. Can I have a quick question? It just occurs to me, is there anybody in the house who's never bought anything on the internet? Anybody? One person? Wow. I hate shopping. I truly hate shopping. I told the guys here already last week that I hate shopping. I hate shopping, going out in the street and trailing around and walking for ages and ages. On the other hand, I really love shopping. I love the culture which comes with it. Just as we were told, you know, it's nice to go out there, it's fine, nice to meet the community. We're social people. We love to engage out there. And we all kind of hear this all the time. This is the standard slide you have to put up at the beginning of an evening like this. The high street is dying. Well, we could talk about all kinds of things are dying. Music is dying. Fashion is dying. Books, literature is dying. Everything is changing. So I want to talk about this tonight, and you're saying I might have an opinion. I don't have an opinion. That's a problem because I'm actually confused. I'm seriously confused. I try to think about the future, and the future was easy till recently. Yeah, we would fly around in cars and things would be shot by rocket to our homes, but that's not the future we are living in. So I'm going to talk a bit about the future today, and the future kind of driven by retail. So this is my high street. And it's not a pretty street. I hate this street, actually. When I moved there, I really didn't engage with it. But I lived there for 10 years and started to love it. Because I'm engaging with people through, not particularly these stores, but these are kind of representations of the kind of stores that take over the high street when all the other ones fail. The 99p stores, the payday loan, Christian church where you can pray if you have spent too much money, the pawn shop where you can get rid of your jewelry you bought before, etc., etc. So I want to talk about a brief history of commerce and the city, and really thinking around how trade has shaped our cities, not the technology. I'm not talking about mobility in the future or nanotechnologies or production technology. I'm interested in what happens with commerce. So if we go back, the cities emerged as part of our transition from hunter-gatherers to agricultural communities. We started to create surplus, and the surplus could be traded and exchanged for other things, sold, other food types. So the first kind of markets emerged, and there were these kind of nuclear cities. There were just places where you would meet every now and then to trade your produce. And as the city started growing, shopping streets emerged along the roads which lead to these markets. And we can trace that back 5,000 years, and it hasn't changed much since. And then the Industrial Revolution really changed a lot. Suddenly, we started producing more and more and more. We went into economies of scale. What happened was that we would produce hundreds and hundreds of miles of textiles, and we would bring them to the cities where they would be cut into smaller pieces. Taillé, retail, retaillé. And with that came a new kind of institution, which was based around the shop window. You had to showcase all the choices you were creating. So shop windows is something very recent. It's something just emerged at the beginning of the 19th century. The cities started growing, connected by railroads, and things like department stores came up where all these products were brought together, aggregated into one place, in one style, around one price point. Not only that, things like the mail order catalog came up. Mail order catalog actually allowed you to buy stuff remotely, supplied through the postal services which were running over the railroads. Not much changed for about 100 years, but then the car became affordable enough that people started using it, and it became a democratic tool of mobility. And the city started to change radically. They started to go inside out. The economies of scale there actually allowed us to aggregate even more stuff, and you created shopping malls. And then the shopping malls were kind of growing and growing, and then getting us to an enormous surplus of stuff. We had enormous of a choice of options of the same thing again and again. We had a fascinating relationship with this kind of hunter-gatherer. You're kind of picking around, looking around, trying to find the best thing. We still have that feeling in us. And we had a love with shopping windows, going out there, trying to find the next best thing. But then we brought the shopping window into the house through the television set. Most television shows actually have kind of merchandise in them to stimulate people buying it. And then things kind of started accelerating, and now we are kind of close to a future where we actually can hold up a device in the room and see whatever you were, where it comes from, and actually can click it and say, hey, I want that too. Actually, we do that already. We have Shazam. Any song you hear, you can kind of buy instantly. So we actually now have the stores in our pockets. Well, that's really weird because that means that there is shopping anywhere, any place, any time. Now, that's what I want to talk a little bit more about today. So we're in the middle of this so-called digital revolution. And what does it mean? It means that we are changing infrastructures, and they're leading to a change of the roles of retail. And I want to talk briefly about 6 indicators driven by this improved communication and the infrastructures, leading to conversions of commerce, of products and services. The first one is the last click. You're all guilty of it. The last click is that you go somewhere out, you choose something, you look at it, and you think, oh, that's nice. Pick up your phone and say, okay, it's cheaper on Amazon. Click, buy it on Amazon. The value that was given by you that offered choice in the real world is not realized for that retailer. To the situation that actually now shops are charging fitting fees. This is a classic example. It costs 25 Australian dollars to try this one on in a store. Before you even try it, you have to pay. If you buy this one, you get the money off. Otherwise, you can walk away and actually purchase this online. And that is exactly the value difference which it would incur. The product supply chain is changing massively. And most people don't really realize, but fashion was a necessary thing. There's multiple kind of philosophies here about what fashion is. But fashion was necessary because of the way we produced fashion and how we distribute it. So up till about 2000, up till the kind of when the internet really hit the homes, fashion changed pretty much every 10 years, or even in smaller segments. Now, if I look at the audience here, I would take a picture of you and I would compare it with a picture of 10 years ago. You probably look all the same. Not much difference. Perhaps a beard here and there, I don't know. And that has to do that in the past, we needed to align because of the bad communication and distribution technology facilities. We needed to align. We needed to create a color trend. Like Leader by Edelkort would have set up a color book about 4 years before that trend would hit the shops. The next year, the textile industry would kick in, developing the prints and the weaves. The third year, the fashion designers would have their shows. And then the fourth year, you would actually find the things in the stores. That has changed. It's changed. Zara says they can do something under 2 weeks these days, from fashion walk, catwalk, to actually bring it into a store. So in the past, there was a risk if you got the fashion trend wrong. These days, we mitigate that by having extremely eclectic recombinations of styles. And we get shops like these. These are 3 different stores, 3 different brands next to each other here in London, and they're all selling these T-shirts in print. The bottom line actually are prints which people can interactively design themselves. It all looks the same. So where we're at the moment is that we have plenty of choice, but with very little variation. That's something to think about, because that's the problem we face in retail. The next one, as you know, this is a standard one, anything, anywhere, anywhere. It's really the music industry changing because of the distribution, the democratization of the tools, the democratization of the distribution led to a complete new set of business tools and rules. In the fact, you don't make money in selling music just on a medium online. You have to produce all kinds of things around it. You have to sell events, you have to sell merchandise. We know lots of my friends actually make money only out of the merchandise of their music, not the music itself. So the value perceptions are changing, and it changes really the way we access anything, especially music, but it affects the sex industry. One of the biggest industries is crippling at the moment because of the changing business models around it. So as consumption behaviors are changing, only in-person services, including hospitality, can survive. Only niche offers that can do without economies of scales are remaining. And we see that on the high street. It used to be a difference between 40% of kind of entertaining and service, entertaining, eating, drinking, grooming, and 60% was purchase and transactions. That is shifting massively. Entertainment is growing to replace the empty halls of the retailers. Total convergence. There's another thing which people forget. Technology has been growing over the last 50 to 100 years. Things like audio quality became bigger and bigger and better, but at some point, it was not a differentiator anymore. In the past, you had a better hi-fi system, you had a better TV than your neighbor, you had a better car. These days, all the things are pretty much behaving similar. They're all as good as the other one. So there's no differentiation in here anymore. And we see that happening. All these functions, from a cassette tape, over music, over camera, all gets together into this kind of mobile platform. And the only thing which I design about every day is different form factors of accessing it. The products actually look all the same. They're square, black, square rectangles, and you put something on it. To the point, actually, this is an advertisement 4 or 5 years ago by John Lewis. The only differentiator is they had to actually stick the brand on it, and the rest is just the numerical difference. Yeah, this is very hard to sell, I tell you that from experience. So, another one. Economic pressures changes shopping patterns, and that happens again and again. Recently, in 2008, with the crisis, shopping patterns started changing, especially people doing the once a week kind of big shopping purchase. Instead, the cost of transport became too big, and what we see now, especially in London, but anywhere in the world, I don't know exactly what the situation here in Holland is, but what happens now is that the big brands are actually putting small shops back into the neighborhoods, actually competing again with the small shops. And what happens now is that we do bulk purchases online, and then we do top-up shopping on a daily basis at home. The last one is from ownership to access, from products to services, and collaborative consumption. The patterns of shopping are changing. And it has to do that, as I said before, the products are not differentiated enough anymore. They don't provide enough status. So when the whole value of ownership is changing, and there's all kinds of philosophies we don't have time to speak about today, but it's that the value of access becomes more important than the value of ownership, and all kinds of things happen around that. So we can, classic examples. Airbnb, one of the biggest hotel chains in the world, chains without owning a single room. It's people sharing their rooms. I don't have a car, I use Zipcar. I use the car I need when I need it. A Komodo, you kind of borrow power tools if you need them from other people and pay for that, or you get it even for free. So they call it the experience economy. There's many, many different kind of things, but it was that in the past we were selling commodities, we packaged them, that was kind of the first kind of retail. Then we started brewing coffee around it, but now it's about the experience. So for car industry, it's not anymore about selling you a car, it's about providing mobility. For a washing machine manufacturer, it's not anymore about selling you a washing machine, it's about selling cleanliness. And that's very different in the mind of marketing. What is bigger and better cleanliness? How is it faster, better, sooner, later, whatever? How do you sell that? So markets and trading places shape our cities. If the requirements for these are changing, how will changing business models affect the shape of our cities? And I want to tell you a tale of 3 cities. The first one is the one-line city. And it's about that e-commerce is growing, entertainment is growing, single households are spreading, the cost of mobility is increasing, and there's a whole list of trends I could list up here, which kind of get a very kind of not so nice future ahead of us. We see people in Japan not coming out of their homes, living online all the time. They purchase food in games. So what we notice, and what we know what affects the high street is that even a slightest change in turnover, as little as 10%, could be enough to kill a high street store. Now, if all of us just buy a little bit more online, that will mean that the high street is even dying faster. So let's assume the high street really dies. So this is I wanted to show you the film, but it's a bit too long. I encourage you to watch it. It's a short film done by Israeli students about a hypothetical future where you actually have glasses which bring all the services we now have on our phone through your glass into your eyes. The person lives in an empty space. The wall is decorated with things he downloads. He doesn't really need furniture. He needs one chair to sit on. His love life is online. His games are online. Everything he does is online. He doesn't need anything. He doesn't own products. He buys services, perhaps. So as more and more of these people live online and have their love life online, their music is online, their entertainment is online, everything is online, you get a very strange situation because suddenly the city is not necessary anymore. This is a typical example. These are virtual goods. This is big business. This is unreal goods which are traded online. They're representations of real products in a virtual environment. They cost money. There's a study by MIT, you should watch this. This is beautiful. This is actually the delivery routes of pizza delivery in New York, actually tracing it back to the whole of the United States. And it was looking actually that people increasingly actually eat at home, purchase things, heat it up, have it delivered. And that actually has some profound effects to some of the big companies. Google just bought 2 weeks ago a company called Uber, which is a taxi sharing or a taxi kind of company. They are looking forward that this in the next 20 years, they might develop this into a robotic delivery service. That everything kind of gets delivered to our homes. And you yourself don't have to drive anymore because you're driven around by a robot. Now, another trend out there is we may be able to build our things at home. You don't have to go to a shop, you just, you order it, it gets produced in your house. I think that's a dream, but okay, it's one of the scenarios. Not only that, using the online world actually costs a lot of energy. Every time you search, every time you click a Google search, it costs so many milliwatts. And accumulate that to the billions of searches are done every day. You need huge data centers, enormous amount of energy to actually keep the internet running. So this is an example of Facebook having a server farm up in the Nordic Circle to reduce the cost of energy by cooling it with the cold air from the Nordic area. So there might be reduced need for mobility. We don't really have to drive around too much. And as history shows, that most cities have grown at optimal distances from each other to optimize this distribution. So here's an example, it's called slime mold. I don't know if you've heard of it, but slime mold is this kind of self-organizing organism. And they've done experiments by actually laying out cornflakes in the shape of Tokyo and then looking how they were connecting to each other. And it turned out that the connections were pretty much similar to the existing infrastructure. That kind of thinking of optimizing the relationship leads me to the thinking of that we might actually get linear cities. We only kind of connect distribution centers and the centers of where the internet nodes are happening. We don't need anything around it. And funny enough, if you look in history, there have been multiple ideas around the linear city. This was a road town from the 1930s where the cars would be in the basement, and then you would have, in the 60s, they started, in the 70s, started thinking about this again, making very narrow kind of cities which kind of meander through nature. This whole thing was driven by nature. These linear cities were thinking that we would have to bring nature closer and underneath the cities. I don't think that will be the main driver. The main driver will be economic. It's the optimization of supply routes. That's all it has been. The whole time we had cities, it's about optimization of supply. The second city, it's the hyper-local city. It's the kind of trend we are kind of feeling at the moment. It's actually using, again, the internet, online tools to bring the community together, to understanding where you are, what's happening around you, and very much kind of serving, like local enterprises, we can reach out and advertise to the locals around them and have a dialogue much easier than they used to have 10, 20 years ago. Do you know what this is? Any idea? This is London, by the way, but what do you think the dots are? Sorry? Foursquare, yeah, that would be good, but there's actually coffee shops. There's about 5,000 or 4,500 coffee shops in London already. There's about place for 7,000. It just shows that communities need places to meet. Communities attract themselves. And the good example here is that these, let me just see if this clicks through. This is an example of one of these community meeting points. This is a bicycle coffee shop where the bicyclists kind of meet each other. There's a bike repair place. But you can think that through. There's all kinds of variations of there. There's a bookstore with a cafe, a restaurant, a fashion plus bar. There's a famous laundry and cafe in San Francisco. In Berlin, there's a bank with a design shop, et cetera, et cetera. You can see this kind of correlation of service and trade. Farmers markets. Now, here in Holland, it's a bit difficult to talk about farmers market because it has a huge tradition. It's never vanished. In America, it's the biggest and fastest growing trade. There's apparently more farmers markets than Walmarts at the moment in America. The interesting thing that's about being fresh, local, and seasonal. And we have started thinking, and there's lots of experiments around on a global scale of what we can do to actually supply locally. And we'd have to do all kinds of weird things to supply that, to the point that we even have to think that if we have to feed everybody locally, we have to start stacking farms up and supply them with this strange magenta light which absorbs by the chlorophyll and start kind of producing locally, farm locally. Another thing which the local economies are driving is the so-called pop-up stores. We will talk about this today a little bit more. This is the Pox Park in Shoreditch. It offers local communities to try things out for 3 months, for 4 months. Somebody local might try a new kind of idea or run something only on a seasonal basis. Local currencies. There's quite a few here in Holland. Holland has quite a tradition in it. There's time-sharing currencies. This is the Brixton pound. It's meant to keep the economy local, to encourage to buy local. It's one of these kind of effects. And then if you live local, you want to produce your energy local as well. Solar, wind, and so on. I think this is from a Rotterdam company, actually. So in this kind of hyper-local city, everybody is a producer of goods. Everyone offers services. Everyone supplies energy. Everyone is a trader. It's the local, it's the urban village idea. And I wish I could go deeper in this. This is the kind of work we do all the time at the moment. It's about figuring out what is this kind of service layer we can create to facilitate space, skills, time, apparatus, communication, and financial trading tools to allow a community to operate by themselves. The interesting thing is these communities will look inwards. They will look like grapes. They might not communicate beyond each other. They might have like in the inside a kind of the agora. And a central marketplace, and everything is in a walking, cycling kind of distance. It's a very utopian kind of future. Not clear how it relates to the rest of the world, but anyway, this is just a scenario. The third one is the aspirational city. And I have to disappoint me. It's not a future city, it's a city we have already. It's really based on our sense of a global culture which we have created through broadcast media, TV, the internet. It's based on global tribes, people behaving on a global scale, not anymore individually. They behave as certain kind of recognizable characters. And we can provide retail and brands to support this or to drive this even more. And it's a weird city, because the city is everywhere. The city is global. And it's fueled by the internet. It's by realigning and resynchronizing tastes amongst the community. Things like Pinterest really kind of synchronize. This is the new leaflet. You don't have paper leaflet anymore. This is a leaflet. It's copy and paste. You stick it around, you share it with friends. And it creates styles by comedy. It's represented in our airline, shopping malls. Our transportation hubs are becoming shops. These look the same anywhere in the world. They have the same brands anywhere in the world. I don't want to travel anymore in the world because I encounter the same thing everywhere. It doesn't matter if it's the perfume or it's the handmade bead or it's a particular trouser. They all look the same on a global scale. To the point that we actually have things like the shopping malls like Westfield, which really kind of facilitate an experience, a shopping experience. It's not about going to shop, it's about being entertained there. And again, they look the same. If you're in Dubai, in London, or in New York, or Singapore, they're the same shops. But they're interesting because if you manage to attract one, as a developer, it's fantastic because you have instant credibility. Yeah? As soon as you go to Starbucks in your neighborhood, you are certified for a particular target audience. So these are kind of off-the-shelf global brands, and there's some really funny things happening. I just want to show you one. I mean, I wanted to show you more different shops. I show you only one because Nespresso is such a fascinating one. And it's again about coffee. And Nespresso, you might use, but the interesting thing, it is a commodity product which actually turned into something desirable. You go there to be entertained, to meet friends, to discover perhaps new tastes, but the actual trade is online. You get the stuff sent home, but it still creates and facilitates entertainment around the main brand. Now, this is in Austria. I found a place in China. I found Paris in China. I found Disney World all over the world. But anyway, there's these kind of shopping villas emerging. It's theater of retail theater. You not necessarily go there to purchase stuff, but you go again to discover things, and then you might actually continue buying it online. The interesting thing is that other companies around it start actually kind of reacting to that. So this is Airbnb, which actually starts branding areas in towns according to certain kind of lifestyle qualities. This is fascinating because there's a complete new thinking, because normally councils think what they believe a certain area is about. Now, Airbnb starts branding areas. And not only that, we actually see that happening with gated communities. They will decide which shops are allowed inside their community and which not. So we're going to control that in this world. So in this aspirational city, people used to be kind of captured by a brand. And brand used to be in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, tried to kind of move with the customers. So every 10 years, they updated their brand and tried to move with you. Levi's did that, Starbucks did that, etc. But now, we're going to a new situation, actually, that the brands have to stay static. The brand could be a city, the brand could be a fashion clothes, could be a taste, a kind of a food stuff. But the interesting thing is that the people are moving brands. The brands are becoming extremely conservative. They might adapt a little bit, but as such, I can bet you that Starbucks looks the same in 20 years. Levi's will be the same. Yeah? They all stick. But you, as a customer will weave between the brands. Very different from in the past. So this city is based around zones, areas which are recognizable by the tribes which inhabit them. And you can see that here, probably in Rotterdam. In London, you can see Shoreditch is very different from Mayfair. You can just feel it in the street. And that actually expands on a global scale. Same people, same behaviors, same shops. This is a global city. That's the true global city. It's the city of brands and lifestyle aspirations. So I wanted to give you a brief introduction here into 3 hypothetical futures which are based on current trends. I didn't try to invent anything new here. This is all existing trends. But what I want you to think through in the next, or through this evening, is that your behaviors will kind of drive the development, not the city planners. It's you. Yeah? Next time you buy something on Amazon, next time you like something on Facebook, next time you go to the farmer's market, think about this. It's really about your behaviors that will set the choices for the kind of cities you will soon live in. Because the cities, as we know it, will not exist in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexander. Well, no, I need you. Really, I want to have a little chat with you, just to finish it off. Because you began with telling us you were confused. Mm-hmm. And I think you're the one who advising designing for big companies, so they must be in total panic when their advisors confused, and you tell them, stay the same, people will change. Stay static.
Now, I'm going to talk a little bit out of the book here, which perhaps I should not, but it's been recorded, who knows?
That's why this question.
Let's say I worked for, I've been interested in retail. I created a couple of pop-ups over the years to really kind of, in 2006, I was interested in what happens if you bring consumer electronics into a fashion environment. I brought applications in 2010 into a bar to see how do you sell services. We then worked with Nokia after that, and I told them, guys, the way you approach this is not going to happen. Yeah, because that's some kind of idea about people sitting down, taking time, and exploring their phones. And I said, it would be interesting to take a very radical approach, a prototyping approach, to learn as you do. But they couldn't think about it because their marketing was still based on very old-fashioned thoughts. A bigger camera, more megapixels, faster connection, more friends.
Not learning.
No. So it's very hard actually to communicate some of these ideas because it's about how to design for uncertainty. And that's what I said. The marketing in the past was easier because you needed to target certain areas. Now it's very open and you need to be very agile and reacting to it. And that's exactly what I try to do as much as possible, is to create agile design environments where we learn from prototypes and build and react to customers' desires and needs.
But it's hard to sell, and they don't really listen.
Very hard to sell. Very hard to sell, I'll tell you that.
Okay, well, good luck with selling that. Thank you, Alexander.
Cheers.